the unboxing. Oh, yeah.
Greetings, followers. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and I would like to welcome you to Into the Fringe, number 67, with Albert Rosales. Born in Cuba, Albert Rosales migrated to the U.S. in 1966. He had several unusual incidents as a young man while living in Cuba, and such incidents continued as an adult in the U.S. Rosales became interested in unusual phenomena and UFOs at an early age, but soon directed his focus to the crux of the phenomena, the humanoids, entities, extraterrestrials, UFO-nauts, etc. He began collecting data on such encounters from worldwide sources in the late 80s. He has a current database of over 20,000 entries, which are updated and corrected daily, and he has published 16 books to date. Welcome back, my friend Albert Rosales, to Into the Fringe.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Glad to be back.
It's wonderful to have you back.
Thank you. And just to mention, the last winner, his book is on the way. It's been a delay, and I'm sorry about that. But
from last month?
In the mail. Yeah, from last month.
Awesome, man.
He's in Canada. I know that. Sometimes the mail is crazy, but he'll get it. He'll get the book. Yeah.
Awesome. And today we are giving away the book that is from 1981 to 1985, correct?
Correct. I don't have it with me. I told you what happened, but I ordered it. It's coming Friday, so shouldn't be no problem with that. Yeah.
Well, I think
I ordered a whole bunch of books. That way I'll have
Monkey Jeebus is probably going to win this giveaway at the end of our stream, but we'll find out. I just have a sneaking suspicion somehow. So, I do want to mention directly after the show, there's going to be an unboxing. Let me see if I can correct my camera just a little bit here.
An unboxing. Okay.
So, you probably can't see this, but this is my new Marvel wall hanging.
Oh, it's nice. Thanos.
And, yeah. Thanos. So stay tuned after the show. We have a separate show for the unboxing, but I wanted folks to know about that. And let's go ahead and tweet out that we're doing the show so that more people will show up. And let's recognize some folks in the chat here. Cosmic Squirrel was first. Hail. Pat S. is here. Good to see you, brother. Monkey Jeebus, of course. And looks like as people are rolling in, we're going to get started on some cases. Now, these are cases that you have personally curated just for tonight's show, right?
Right. A lot of them have been translated and provided for me. I translated a lot of them, but they've been provided to me by the investigators and other sources.
Do you want to take the first one so I don't have to
yeah, no problem.
Butcher some Espanol?
Yeah, there you go. I tried to find some cases for Kansas, but I don't know. There weren't that many. But I think I did.
There's the Delphos, Kansas case.
Yeah,
but I've never
71.
been to Delphos, and I don't really know how far it is away from where I live. I imagine that ring is still there, though.
That was an amazing case. So we're gonna start the night off with a case from Argentina, a place called Caleta Olivia in the province of Santa Cruz, Argentina.
Here it says Delphos, Kansas is 2 hours and 32 minutes away on I-70. So, some other day, I guess.
Not that far. No. Well, this is in Argentina, Caleta,
I like
Olivia.
your earbuds. They look
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. Let the show begin.
Argentina, Caleta, Olivia, province of Santa Cruz, 1981, late evening. And the main witness, his name was Lewis. He's been involved in other encounters, apparently. Accompanied
He's a
by
repeater.
probably a repeater, yeah. Accompanied by two unidentified friends, watched a dark mass emerge from the sea and approach the beach area. The craft was dark and circular and landed in front of the witnesses. A ramp became visible, and the men were invited inside by a voice, told to come in. Once inside, they found themselves in a brightly lit circular room. They could not see the source of the lighting. Several tall humanoids, about 2 meters in height, blonde hair, light eyes, and wearing tight-fitting white coveralls, greeted them. There were both men and women among the aliens. Some of the humanoids were seated in front of consoles and watching large screens on the walls. On some of the screens, the men could see stars, and suddenly, on one of these screens, they could see how the object moved away from the planet Earth. The craft circled the moon, and they were able to see its dark side of the moon. The humanoids communicated via telepathy and told the witness that they were now headed towards the sun. I would have wanted out then. The witnesses claimed that once up close to the sun, it appears black in color. While they were returning to Earth, Lewis was able to walk around freely, and at one point approach one of the consoles, and as his hand reached out to the controls, the images on the screen appeared to gyrate about 90 degrees. It appears that he had caused the object to turn without actually touching the console. He was immediately told to sit back down. They returned to Earth and entered the sea in the area in the Caribbean. The witnesses then claimed to have seen incredible endless tunnels, and within the tunnels, huge dome covered cities underwater and completely illuminated. Before being returned to the beach at Caleta, Olivia, the witnesses claimed they were implanted in their brains with what appeared to be some type of tracking device, which is used to communicate with the aliens. The implants is supposedly located behind the right ear. Investigators reported seeing a small scar at that location. This is from a couple investigators, a husband and wife, Liliana Flota and Eduardo Grosso from Argentina. Ooh, what is that?
Didn't Whitley Strieber report something like that?
Well, there's many incidents, and people have reported underwater, underground tunnels and cities covering.
But he had an implant in his ear, and when he tried to have it removed, it moved around, right?
They couldn't get it, but coincidentally, I just watched his movie this past weekend.
Communion? I almost did. It was suggested to me. I love that movie. You know, it's got Christopher Walken in it as Whitley Strieber, and he's kind of alien looking anyway, so it's creepy.
The way he talks, definitely, yeah. So that was an interesting case. Yeah.
I worked on my Christopher Walken for 2 years before I broke it out in public. Okay, so this one is in Giles County, Tennessee. Date, early March 1981 at night. A county preacher reported that about a week after a low-flying UFO had just cleared the roof of his home, an event seen by both him and his wife, the window by the bed lit up, and he rolled over and saw that the whole backyard was lit up, and standing there about 10 feet from the window was a strange man. The man stood there looking straight at the witness. He was about 5'5" or 5'6" and was dressed in a dark one-piece suit. He had close-cut, coal-black hair and was olive-complected and thin-faced. The next thing the witness remembers was being outside in the field behind his home and there were 4 of these men sitting in a half-moon circle facing him, and he was sitting on the ground also. Standing between them was the man he had seen at first. He wasn't the only one who spoke, and he said, "I suppose you believe in us now." And he said, yes, he hadn't believed any of it before. The man told him that he could talk about this visit and everything except what they told him not to tell. Then they told him 2 things he wasn't supposed to tell, and he hasn't told anybody to this date and doesn't think he ever will. The next thing he knew, he was back in bed with a kind of jerk, and he was convinced that it hadn't been a dream, and he doesn't know how they got him out or got him back. And the comment here is, some secrets should remain secret.
All right, so we move on to the next one. That was another interesting case. This is from Norway, a place called Brekken. Summer 1981 in the morning, and in this small mountain village, only 4.5 miles southeast of Hesdalen. Of course, Hesdalen is a place where they have the famous lights and different UFOs seen there throughout the years.
It's a hot spot.
Yeah. A housewife called named Hordis H, the last name started with an H, was home one early summer morning when she watched through the window the landing of a craft about 250 meters away. From the craft exited a person who was apparently wearing some sort of bulky spacesuit. He went off in a waddling gait into the nearby woods. Mrs. H then walked into the living room and picked up a pair of binoculars to study the figure and the craft better. She could see that the figure was short and it resembled an astronaut on the moon, especially in the way he moved. She was able to study the scene for 15 minutes from the window. The waddling figure finally went back into the landed craft, which then lifted up into the clear blue sky, quickly disappearing from sight. The neighbor closest to her reported that as he was releasing his cattle into the field, he saw the craft land and the animals immediately panicked. It was several hours before the animals calmed down. This is from a Swedish newsletter, UFO News number 1, 1983.
You know, I have to say, it seems like every show that we do, there are so many cases where people seem to see the Michelin Man or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Or the ones that look like they're wearing astronaut suits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very high strangeness. But that's what you do. You come to Into the Fringe, Albert, and you bring us the high strangeness, and I like that.
There you go. Yeah, and I like to look for those cases.
So this next one is Coladas near Belém, Pará, Brazil. The date is summer 1981. The time is evening. Maria Claras was preparing dinner in her modest thatched roof cottage. Boy, say that 5 times fast with marbles in your mouth. Maria Claras was preparing dinner in her modest thatched roof cottage at this small island off the port of Belém when suddenly she was fired upon through the roof by a man in a tight black skin suit wielding a strange weapon whose rays burned Mrs. Claras on the chest and neck. Medics at the hospital in Belém could not identify the cause of her burns. Her blood count was way below normal, but for no apparent reason. About the same time, 500 miles to the west in Monte Alegre, schoolteacher Antonia Rodriguez and her pilot husband were fishing in the Rio Mayacuru, an Amazon tributary, when they spotted a being in a black diver suit flashing a ray gun. The stranger, of normal build but with abnormally slanted eyes, approached the boat and discharged the ray gun into the water as the terrified couple made for the bushes. And this is a Type E encounter. What does that mean, Albert?
That means the entity or humanoid was seen alone without not being accompanied by a UFO or craft.
Gotcha. I hope I didn't murder the Spanish too much.
No, it was actually Portuguese, but you did pretty good.
Portuguese. Okay.
Portuguese. I've been sorry for my bending down a lot, but my one of my dogs is here and I'm alone, so
Oh, that's okay.
I gotta
If you
treat.
try and hide them away, they actually make more noise and bark. So
No, no, yeah, worse, yeah. Okay,
it's cool.
this next one here is from the Caucasus region in Russia. It doesn't give me an exact location. Summer 1981, at night. Lubov G, a woman from the Ukrainian city of Kharkov, was resting at one of the many resorts in the Caucasus when suddenly her rest was interrupted by unexpected illness. A very strong pain had suddenly appeared around her waist area, irradiating to the left side. She felt terrible and thought the pain was a portent of her imminent death. During the night, while in the hospital, she could not sleep and felt disoriented. I guess she was taken to a hospital there in the region. Soon she saw several unknown humanoid figures milling around her. She only saw their silhouettes and was not able to see them in detail. She was unable to move, and she couldn't turn her head or scream. She felt that as if the entities were doing something to her side, around the kidney area. She felt no pain, but she had the distinct feeling that someone had penetrated inside her body and had touched her inner organs. As the entities left the room, she tried to look at them better, but the floating figures seemed to dissolve into the darkness of the room. She tried to look at them better, but yeah, a female companion in the room slept soundly during the whole episode. In the morning, when Lubov switched on the lights, she couldn't find any trace of an operation. She looked around the hospital corridors, but everything was quiet. A young hospital nurse was sleeping near the telephone. She awoke her and asked her about the doctors that had visited her in her room at night. But the young nurse was confused, stating that there hadn't been anyone in her room or in the floor visiting throughout the night. The doctors, in fact, had been sleeping on the first floor. After this incident, the witness never suffered from any kidney pain again. So
Wow.
this is a cure claim.
A
I mean,
healing
a healing.
case.
I mean, it's weird because why do they cure? They heal some people and other people they don't. I don't know
Well, I
what's
think they
behind it.
did both to Travis Walton, right? They zapped him, and then they had to take him aboard so they could reconstruct him.
That's happened before. Yeah, they either accidentally or for some reason the person gets too close to the UFO and then they have to bring him in and fix him.
Albert, am I loud enough for you?
Yeah, yeah, you're loud.
Okay, right on. So we'll move to the next one.
Ah,
And that last one was from a newspaper in Kiev, Ukraine, right?
yeah. Interesnaya Gazeta. Interesting newspaper, Ukraine. They used to. I don't know if they still do, but they used to publish a lot of UFO incidents and encounters.
Okay, here we're going to challenge my Espanol again.
A little bit. Yeah.
Location is Alto de la Herrera, Alava, Spain. I don't know if this is Castilian Spanish or regular Spanish that I'm supposed to be attempting. Date is 1982, time 3 a.m. Attorney Ramon Valer was driving from the city of LaGuardia to Victoria one night, and upon reaching the above location, he saw something strange on the left side of the road about 60 meters away. The object resembled a high-voltage panel, bluish-white in color, and was floating at about 5 meters from the ground. It was rectangular in shape. Intrigued, he stopped his vehicle. As he did, he saw two figures, and these men were very tall and were standing in front of the luminous panel. He estimated the figures to have been at least 3.5 meters in height, perhaps 4. Wow. That's like 16 to 24 feet or something. He estimated, right, they were wearing some sort of cone-shaped tunics or clothing. He was not able to see their faces. One of the entities then began approaching the vehicle. Frightened, he attempted to start the car, but the engine did not respond. He wasn't sure if he had turned off the engine. The only thing he could think to do was to lift his foot off the brake, and the vehicle then began rolling downhill without any lights and total darkness. At about 800 meters, he noticed two figures walking up the slope on the road. At first, he thought they could be rural civil guards, but he wasn't sure since the figures were kind of small and were walking in single file on his right side. They seemed to be struggling as they moved. He no longer could see the tall beings in the tunics. Ramon stopped his car one more time and got out, still thinking that the approaching figures were either civil guards or forest rangers. As the two short men stopped next to him, he told them what he had seen, all the details. And then to his astonishment, one of them said, "Don't worry, they are authorized to be there." The stranger repeated, "You don't have to worry, they are authorized." He understood that the guard or whoever the figure were talking to about the strange tall figures in the object. The supposed civil guards were short, wearing green-colored uniforms. Flabbergasted, he got back inside his car. The two strangers then kept walking up the slope. Ramon doesn't even remember ever noticing their faces. Now, Albert, I gotta say, right off the bat, I remember a case like this from a very recent show. Might have been the last show or the one before that, where they said it's okay, he's authorized.
Yeah.
Is this the same case or a different case?
I don't think it's the same one because this is in 82. We did up to 80 or 81. But
so,
no,
do you think this is something that was mentioned twice?
This case, you mean?
Well, I mean, in the copy here, it says, "Don't worry, they are authorized to be here." The stranger repeated, "You don't have to worry, they are authorized."
Yeah,
I remember that verbatim from, I think, the last show that we did.
Really? Because I don't think we went up to 82. We went up to 81.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking if it's a different case.
Look at the. I don't know if you still have the email from the other cases there, but maybe we should check. But I don't think so.
I'll fish for that while you read the next one.
Okay. The next one, I can't do a British accent, but is that
go for it.
Carlton Moor, North Yorkshire, England. I think that's more Irish.
I think that's a bit of a Irish accent, actually.
Yeah. Colin Farrell, 1982, time afternoon. A married couple out walking their dog. Were walking the dog when they noticed two figures, some 100 yards in front of them. The figures were standing side by side and facing a hawthorn bush. The witnesses continued to walk towards the figures, and then they noticed that their arms were outstretched over the bushes. They thought it was a little strange to see two people with their arms outstretched, but thought it may be farm workers spraying. They came to this conclusion because the figures were wearing identical clothing, either a dark green or blue one-piece suit. The couple then realized that the suit was tight-fitting and covered the entire body. They also said that the suit may have covered the head, either that or the men were totally bald. When the couple got within 50 yards of the man, one of the figures turned towards the witnesses and they both stopped, dead in their tracks. They described the face as a very pale, thin, and narrow, and appeared to be menacing. The shin was very pointed. At this point, the witnesses realized that they had not got anything in their hands. Both witnesses refused to go any nearer. The husband turned his head and the figures were gone. The couple walked to the bushes and realized that the top of the bushes were way above their heads. They calculated that the figures must have been well over 7 feet tall. The couple immediately went around to the other side of the bushes, but there was no sign of the figures. The witnesses state that from where the figures have been where the figures have been, it was impossible for anybody to hide for at least a mile without being seen. They just disappeared. The witnesses' dogs, whilst the witnesses had approached the figures, had refused to go any further with them. And this is from British researchers Janet and Colin Bohr, Mother Mysteries of Britain, investigated by Tony Dodd. And this is another case with giant figures. We're having a lot of giants around here in the 80s, or at least the early 80s, till the Greys took over.
Yes, and then everything became all bland and normal.
Yeah. No more giants, but yeah.
All right. So this one is in the Baltic Sea, the coast of Ustka, Poland. Date spring of 1982 or 1983. Time early morning. A mechanic of the Polish fishing trawler, the Ust 134, Miroslav Malakwitz, and the rest of the crew were off the coast of Ustka in the Baltic on an 8-hour fishing expedition. There was a crew of 5, and he took turns at the helm. He was on the last watch when he saw an aquamarine light, almost green, to the right of the vessel, not like those normally found in other ships. The green light was on a parallel course, and he was surprised that he could not see a mast light, thinking it was another fishing vessel. Relieved at the helm, he went down to the engine room and spent about half an hour there to prepare the engine for the rest of the trip. After leaving the engine room, to his surprise, the green light was still on the traverse of the trawler. And in conversation with the man at the helm, they exchanged a few sentences that somehow seemed to flow backward. At this point, Malweski believes that there was a period of missing time, maybe up to 8 hours. Before going to his bunk to get some sleep, he told the man in the helm to be careful, and if anything happened, to wake him up immediately. In the morning, he was back at the helm when a strange object began to approach the trawler. He woke up, and the whole crew was in a panic. The disc-shaped object was now above the trawler, and it had a bright green light located on the bottom central section. Now there was no panic, and they all waved when they saw windows on the object, and behind the windows different individuals similar to people but blue in color with large olive eyes. The object accompanied them for a few minutes. None of the men felt fear, and they were all speechless. The object then flew away noiselessly at incredible speed. After 3 days of fishing, they returned to the port of Ustka. After unloading the fish, he returned to his home in Slupsk. There he told his wife about what he had seen, and she pointed out to him several newspaper accounts detailing UFOs over the Baltic around the same time. This is a type A encounter,
where the aliens were seen on board. But he appears to have, like he said, some missing time, and there was some kind of weird time displacement too. That when they were speaking at the beginning, that the time seemed to flow backwards, or kind of weird. Something weird happened. Oh, we move on. Wait a minute. Oh, okay.
By the way, I just wanted to mention to Don McDouglas, today I got your prize in the mail, so be looking for it.
Yeah, sorry for the delay, Don. Okay, next one, we go to Springfield, Missouri.
That's just next door.
Yeah. March 1982 at night. A local woman recalled that at the point where she was supposed to turn south in her car, she didn't. She felt as if the car was being pulled by a force faster and faster toward a light at tree top level above and ahead of her. No engine sound, smooth, no bumps, felt like the car was floating. Then she is in a clearing in the woods with a disc-shaped craft, silver, that had 3 legs underneath. a light shining towards the ground and steps that fall down. She is drawn into the craft and through several rooms to a larger room with a platform like padded white silver chrome that molds to her body. She knows to lie down. She then sees half a dozen men, about 6 feet or 1 or 2 inches tall, good built, just like me, long blonde hair, high cheekbones, blue eyes. This is the typical Nordic description. They wore tight-fitting jumpsuits, brown in color, with matching shoes and belt. Pale yellow stole draped over the shoulder. And they had an interesting part here. They had a winged emblem on the chest, a circle with a hawk eagle head in center and wings on each side.
Thunderbirds are go.
The men were pleasant, caring, and said they were her friends. Told her that they were going to do some tests, but they won't. But that the test won't hurt her. Witness feels slight stinging in breast area, some type of injection on each side of her armpit area. They want to see how Earth women feed their babies, how they are shaped. They then help her off the table, did not talk, could read her thoughts. I guess they were telepathic. They said that she might see them again sometime. The witness walked to the door, down the steps, and all of a sudden she was back in her vehicle. Turned and saw the door closing and on the craft and legs going in as it took off with a whistling, whiny sound. Shot off the ground and it was gone. This is from Linda and Moulton Howe, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1.
You know, I tried like the devil back in the day to find any of her books, and they were always sold out. I don't know if they've reprinted those books or not, but
no, they haven't been reprinted. But if you try to buy one on Amazon, it's like ridiculous the price.
I'm sure they're over $1,000 by now.
I don't think that's bad, but yeah, they're up there. Yeah.
Linda Moulton Howe. Yep. Okay. The next one is located in Ellisville, Illinois. The date is June 11th of 1982. Time, evening. One evening, the witness decided to leave his folks back home and sleep in a newly built shed, which was located past the barn. The smell of new wood was amazing, and there was his wonderful drum set glistening in the moonlight. Woohoo! He lit a candle and tapped around a bit. He finally grew tired, so he climbed onto the old army cot and the 2 quilts and dozed off. About the time he was totally asleep, a shock hit the back of his ear. He turned around to find out what the heck it was, and there, as he rubbed his eyes trying to focus on things in the dim moonlight, there was a strange figure. It startled him at first, and he blinked more to try and focus. It was still there. Almost seemed sort of gray, black eyes, thin body, big head, thin mouth, tiny nose. It may have had a sort of cape on, but the witness couldn't focus well enough to tell. Its shoulders and cheekbones seemed to stick out more. He focused on the eyes, and they were still there. It was all very scary. It sounds very scary. They stared at each other for a moment. Curious, the witness extended his arms toward it in a friendly gesture. About that same speed, it glided back in a floating motion. After staring at each other for some time and nothing happening, the witness decided to roll over and go back to sleep. That's happened to me before, actually. Except I was terrified at the time. When he woke up, he found one of the pigs with slashes on its side. The witness thought that perhaps the alien was taking refuge in the shed because there had been a cougar around. And this comes to us from the Mutual UFO Network, CMS. What's that?
That's the case management system.
Right.
And that's where they get cases. Most of them are investigated. A lot of them are not. But okay, the next one is from Tbilisi, Georgia. We're not talking about Georgia, United States. We're talking about the
one in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, the one that used to be part of the USSR. Now it's a country. June 27, 1982 at 2 a.m. A biologist was working in his garden to, to escape a family party when he observed a bright light near the neighboring reservoir. As he went to investigate, he saw two headless robots. That's what he described them as, with something like eyes on their chest, and below those a white light. They appeared to be pointing white tubes at him. The robots gestured for him to follow them, whereupon he met two other beings, 2 to 3 meters tall. We're talking about giants again here, with just one eye in the center of their foreheads. Polyphemus, large mouth and long legs, dressed in metallic clothing. They were standing by a huge object in which there was an open door. The beings spoke in Russian and claimed to be from the Red Star planet. How convenient.
The Red Star Planet.
That's what they told him. And this was investigated by the Georgian researcher, George Chiladze. And he published in the Missing Link, number 127. And I wish I had more information in this case, but there's in the Missing Link issue, there isn't any more. But I know there's more details, but I don't have them. I thought it was interesting there.
I wonder if Paul Stonehill might have some more information about that.
He has a lot of information. He doesn't do a lot of entity cases, but he does. I haven't been in touch with him in years though, but I know he's still active.
He's someone I definitely want to have on the show in the future.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So again with the Portuguese. The location here is Dois Corregos, Sao Paulo, Brazil. The date is 1983. The time, early morning. Vicente Galvin, a teenager at the time, along with his older brother, both left very early one morning before sunrise toward a watermelon field on which they worked. They went there on foot, even though it was some distance away. Approaching, they saw what appeared to be a group of children playing in the watermelon field. Both were surprised by the fact and thought that the children might be stealing the fruit. They then ran toward the alleged children, who, according to Galvin, did not notice their approach. As the two witnesses got closer, they suddenly stopped when they noticed what at first they thought had been children had suddenly stopped their activities and stood staring at them. The intruders were not children, but strange little men who seemed to be collecting ground samples and brush. The entities wore olive green coveralls and black boots. Galvin and his brother then approached. This apparently startled the entities, who ran toward a nearby object, which until then the witnesses had not noticed. The object had no lights or glare. As soon as the crew members entered the object, it took off at low speed, briefly hovering in midair, and after that remaining in this condition for some time. The object quickly left in an ascending trajectory. And this one is a type B encounter, and I'm going to guess, Albert, that that's beings and a craft.
Yeah, beings seen entering the craft. Either exiting or entering the craft.
Not the only case that I've heard of where people are looking at the craft and they see the crew members, as it says in this case, go into the craft, into the
object. Yeah, they run back in. That means entity seen going back inside the craft. And many cases, they're, because of their size, this type of being, the short little man, originally mistaken by children for children, which has happened many times. The next one here is really weird. I don't know if it necessarily involves an entity, but it's really highly strange. It's from a place called Getafe in Madrid, Spain. I've been there. 1983 in the evening. The witnesses was Ana Ballesteros, 9 or 10 years of age at the time, was playing hide and seek with friends when she suddenly felt an extraordinarily strong urge to walk to an abandoned yard close to where she was playing. The yard was surrounded by extremely high walls and there was no roof. She left her friends behind and stood at the entrance of the yard. At that moment, two bizarre things occurred. It was somehow it was somehow night already. Something she found incredible as only minutes ago she was playing with her friends in broad daylight and directly in front of Anna hovered a disc-shaped object. She pointed out that the object was shaped like an inverted soup plate. It was totally silent and was very shiny, emitting an incredibly bright light, the likes she had never seen before. However, somehow she was able to stare at it without any discomfort. The strong light was limited to the object's edge. The light was so powerful that it should have illuminated the yard completely, but it did not. It was concentrated on the body of the disk. The object was hovering only 3 meters above Anna's head. Anna, feeling no fear, just curiosity, walked under the object, reached out and touched it, and touched the object. She touched the object. She then stood with her back against the object. I mean, okay. Then she stood with her back, staring, staring, staring at the object, mesmerized at the object. She described the object as having an earthly beauty, hard to describe. She stood there for half a minute, observing it when the object began to move. She ran under the object and chased after it when it began to pick up speed. When the object was about 3 to 4 meters from one of the walls, Anna stopped in her tracks, thinking the object was going to crash into the wall. Then something incredible occurred. Out of nowhere, a luminous line, the same color as the object, and about 4 meters in height, appeared on the wall, stretching down to the ground. The disc suddenly stopped, assumed a vertical position, and entered the luminous line, like a portal, I'm assuming, disappearing instantaneously. The line then disappeared like that of an after image on a television screen. And this is from Miguel Pedrero, Revista Año Cero. Weird, huh? So it's like the object left using some kind of portal or something.
Yeah, you're definitely bringing the high strangeness is getting higher.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something here, but go ahead.
Okay, so this one is near Hwange Game Preserve in Zimbabwe. The date 1983, the time 2000 hours. Solomon Katavu and his brother, together with two other men, were on their way home to a village near the Hwange Game Reserve in southern Zimbabwe one evening in 1983. The exact date could not be recalled. They had arrived on a bus from Harare about 8 o'clock, and the bus had dropped them off as close to the village as it could. But they still had a few kilometers to go. It was dark and the bush was thick. Suddenly, the men were aware of a bright light in the sky. They stopped to watch and then realized it was descending toward them. They were sure it was an ancestral spirit and hid behind some trees. The light came lower and lower until at treetop level it settled nearby. Quote, "We could see it was a machine, disc-shaped. We were terrified, but watched to see what would happen." Close quote. Solomon recounted. A door at the top of the machine opened and two men with light-colored skin got out. They floated down to the ground. This was too much for the four watchers. They took to their heels and ran, never stopping until they reached their village. And this one is from Cynthia Hind, Phenomena of 40 Years of Flying Saucers.
Yeah, Cynthia Hind was a Zimbabwean researcher. She covered cases in Zimbabwe and South Africa.
I wonder if they covered the Ariel School case.
I think she did cover a little bit because after that she died of cancer. But yeah, she was involved with that. Yeah, and it's weird the way that some of these UFOs are interpreted in some of the areas in Africa. They're interpreted as, like they say, ancestral spirits, or I mean, they don't have any other word to
This case in Barber County, Kansas, is 4
Next.
hours and 6 minutes away from me. So this is in sort of central southern Kansas.
Oh, see, that's one of the ones from Kansas I found. This is Barber County, Kansas, February 1983. The time was 2000, 8 p.m. The witnesses was a Tom Brebold, a petroleum geologist. He was at an isolated area performing preliminary exploration and was sleeping in his tent when he suddenly woke up with a feeling that he was being watched. Crawling out of the tent, he noticed a strange pulsating orange glow through the fog. He could also hear a low-frequency hum. The witness grabbed a gun and a camera and walked towards the direction of the light. As he reached the edge of a gully, he came upon a huge round object with pulsating orange lights. The humming sound increased as the witness appeared to take a picture. Witness prepared to take a picture of the object. Suddenly, two short, faintly glowing bluish figures appeared by the object. The witness apparently snapped the picture and suddenly fell into the ravine, hitting his head and knocking himself out. When he came to, the beings and the object was gone. UFO Review mentioned that case. It doesn't say what happened to the picture, or the photos came out or anything like that. But I thought it was interesting. Back in '83.
Actually, what's really interesting is this next case I know about.
You know about that case?
If people want to get the inside skinny on this case, they can go to my channel, youtube.com/cardinalsin, and go to the playlist for Into the Fringe. And if you look at some of the early ones, there's Mark Davenport and Tom Nickel, and they covered this story in depth. So the location is near Richard Gebauer Air Force Base, Kansas. Date March 1983. Time morning. The witness was heading for work in a low, overcast, cool morning. He was going on North 67th Street, and as he drove uphill, two small discs passed him heading east. They were traveling at a slow rate of speed and were just above the trees. They passed over the witness silently, one landing while the other was a little to the right and a little black. The witness stopped the car and watched them go by. He was surprised and knew that these were not known human aircraft. Both discs were silver in color with glass domes, and he could see a passenger in each one. These craft seemed to be made for only one passenger each. They were that small, about the size of his car. One occupant was looking at the other. The witness did not see any helmets, and he could not see whether they were human or not. All he could tell is that they were traveling east very slowly and silently. He was unable to follow the strange discs since he had to go into work. Now, Albert, here we have yet another case where we have discs that are, pacing a car, and, we've got humanoids, I guess.
Entities, inside the vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, inside the vehicle. And is that what makes it a Type A encounter?
Yeah, a Type A. And I'm surprised you say you know about this case.
Oh, yeah. In Tom Nichols' lecture, which again is in the playlist for Into the Fringe, you can just go back into the early episodes and find it. They talk about Richard Gebauer all the time.
Okay. Okay, the next one.
Pretty important case.
All right, the next one. I guess you're lucky that you don't have to read it.
Yeah. Yurimagas Alta Amazonas, Peru.
Let me see. It's Peru? Yeah. Yeah.
Francisco Concha Layango. Is that right?
Yeah, you did it okay. Yeah, Yurimaguas, Alta Amazonas, Peru, middle of May 1983, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Francisco Concha Layango, a local farmer, was alone at his tent in the middle of the jungle eating a snack when he suddenly noticed two men standing 5 meters away. The men wore beige-colored jeans, lace boots, sleeveless and collarless shirts, all of the same color. One of the men was about 0.90 meters in height, blonde hair, a dark beard, and thick eyelashes. The other one was somewhat shorter, about 1.80 meters in height. The second one had darker hair and was beardless. Both men had large slanted eyes, large noses, and mouth. The taller man approached the witness while the other stayed behind. The tall man was holding an object resembling a flashlight that gave off an intense red light with a long silver antenna about 3 meters in length. Wow. He asked Francisco what he was doing there, to which he replied that he was not alone, that his sons were returning soon from town. At the same moment, the tall man entered the tent, inserted his hand inside the pocket of the witness' pants that were hanging on the wall, and took out Francisco's dentures. Thinking that the tall stranger was ready to attack him, the witness took out a machete and attempted to strike the man, but was suddenly immobilized and was unable to move. Out of the corner of his eye, the witness saw the tall stranger enter the hut and inscribe some strange symbols on one of the support logs. The witness was unable to tell how the stranger performed this task. At this point, the other shorter man now spoke and told his companion that somebody was approaching. Francisco attempted to look, but was still paralyzed. Seconds later, he was suddenly able to move again, but as he turned around, the two strangers had mysteriously disappeared without making any noises. Soon after the strangers disappeared, the witness' horse, which had remained still during the encounter, suddenly began running around as if mad. Days after the encounter, the witness had a dream that the tall stranger had returned his dentures. Indeed, he did find the dentures in the same pants pocket where the stranger had originally taken them from. During June, there were numerous UFO incidents in the area. I don't know if you see the image of the inscription, but I don't know if I sent it, but there is an image there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have it right here. And I was kind of curious to ask what the hell this is.
Oh, no, but it was in the log. It was inscribed supposedly by either the alien or the entity or whoever he was.
It looks a little bit like a brain, and it also looks a little bit like some of the rocks on Mars or the moon, maybe.
The script, the glyphs that they inscribed are interesting. Alrighty then.
And I just want to remind everybody that, of course, at the end of tonight's episode, we're giving away a copy of Albert's book, Humanoid Encounters, The Others Among Us, 1981 to 1985. Thank you, Canadian Spider-Man, for putting that link in there. And while we're taking a bit of a break, I wanted to ask you, Albert, if people wanted to find more of your stuff online, where could they go?
Well, all of my books are there in not hardcover, softcover, and Kindle, and Amazon. I mean, they're sold in other locations also, but secondhand. You don't want secondhand.
But you have a Facebook group as well, right?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. There's a Facebook group called Humanoid and UFOs and Other Strange Events. I have over 1,000 members already, and in that group I post cases and we discuss events and incidents, and it's pretty the rooms. Yeah, he's correct. But yeah, just visit me in my Facebook page, humanoids and other strange incidents. And there's a lot of interesting stuff posted there.
I'm a member of
Yes.
that group, and anybody here or that sees this in the future that is still on Facebook should definitely check out Albert's group. It is truly amazing and has a lot of really interesting members, and they have a lot to talk about.
There's a lot of authors there in my group, and it's an international group. I got people from Brazil, Argentina, Spain, Sweden, Canada, all over the place. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so this next one.
Remember earlier when, excuse me, Gil, remember earlier when we spoke about the Linda Moulton Howe case?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the image of the entity.
Oh, here, let me blow you up so that we can see you a little bit better.
You see how the winged...
Interesting uniform, yeah. That's the hawk.
Yeah.
There. Definitely looks like a Nordic, for sure. Oh, you've got a copy, you bastard!
You know what?
I want one.
I had 2 copies. I sold both of them. Then the guy I sold it to, I bought it back from him. It's a long story. I lost a lot of stuff and gained back a lot.
Before you leave, after the show, stick around, because I may make you an offer you can't refuse.
Oh no.
Okay, so this one is High Strangeness Index. Is that the first time I've seen that?
Yeah, I used to include that in cases, but I stopped.
Oh yeah.
And reliability source of the source, how reliable.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped because it's just too many cases. And,
there's too many things.
Yeah,
I do
early
appreciate
cases
the comment here, though. It says other researchers point out the similarity between the supposed visitors from Umo to the aliens reported in this intriguing case.
Yeah, I heard some comments about that case, about that.
Okay, so this one takes place in San Miguel del Monte, Buenos Aires, Argentina. The date is summer 1983, time 3:30 a.m. Juan Carlos Villani, 20, a truck driver, was traveling from San Miguel del Monte toward the town of Las Flores. Following him was a co-worker in a separate truck. They were going about 40 kilometers per hour. Arriving at a location called Cuerva de Rosa, Villani's truck headlights illuminated a humanoid figure that was walking on the side of the route from the opposite direction. Villani was stunned as the figure was at least 2.5 meters in height, that's tall, and had long knee-length arms.
Another
the
giant
figure's body seemed leathery without any clothing, and the facial features were not discernible. His co-worker in the other truck also saw the same thing. Without stopping, they drove on. I bet they did. Now, Albert, did you bring cases tonight just to scare me?
The giant aliens, yeah. Watch out.
This is pretty scary stuff.
Alrighty, here we go for the next one. It's not so scary. This is from Australia. I can't do an Australian accent. So
I can do an Australian accent for a while.
There you go. Port Campbell.
That's a knife. Now that's a knife. The thing you have to understand about Australians is that even if they're making a statement, the voice goes up at the end of the sentence as if it were a question. That's how you do an Australian accent.
I used to watch an Australian, I forgot the name. Here we go. This place is called Port Campbell in the state of Victoria, Australia. Summer 1983, early morning. The witness, her name is Winnie. She's been involved in other encounters, so she's a repeater. Had decided to go from the cliff top down to one of the beaches to meditate to the sound of the waves. It was part way down before she could see the beach. What she saw stopped her on her tracks. There was a large grayish UFO standing on the beach. It was circular with a white rim around it and a large bluish silver dome on the top. There was a thick mass coming out of the top, and there was a door open in the dome and steps leading down to the sand. On the sand at the foot of the step was a man dressed in a blue suit. He had blond hair and was looking right at her. He turned and climbed the steps and then smiled at her once more before entering the craft. She hurried down the rest of the trail to the beach, losing sight of it on the way. Reaching the bottom, she was amazed to find that the UFO was no longer there. She did find, however, three imprints about the size of cake cake tins in the sand where it had been. Curiously, she felt a sense of great loss, as if a long lost friend had left for good. This type of expression I heard many times before when they had seen a UFO or had a close encounter. And when the UFO leaves, the witnesses feel a big sense of loss for some reason.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
And is it Billy Meyer or George Adamski that had the wedding cake UFOs? I think it was Adamski, right?
No, wedding cake, I think it was Meyer.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means it's probably bullshit.
Yeah. Billy
He
Meyer.
kind of had a cult of personality around him, and I don't think he was that great a guy.
Maybe he had one experience or two, but then he try to buy some of his early books. Those are really incredible, expensive they are.
And that source was from Brad Milden, Australia.
Australia. He's a researcher.
And
there.
this one is from the Kaluga region of central Russia in the USSR at the time, because the date was summer 1983, and they hadn't gotten through perestroika yet, and it occurred during the daytime. Two 10-year-old girls from a local village went for a walk in the nearby forest and did not return. A search was organized, and only a week later, one of the girls was found sleeping quietly under a tree. Her dress was shredded and torn. She was obviously incoherent and was not able to answer any questions. She could only tremble and cry. Later, the girl said that she and her friend had been wandering through the forest when they met a strange woman of great height, about 2.5 to 3 meters in height, which frightened both of the girls. That would frighten the hell out of me.
3-meter
The
tall
strange
woman.
woman did not say anything. She only stood and quietly stared at the girls. That's like a horror movie thing, man. Seriously. What happened next, the girls could not say or remember. The adults suspected that the girls had become victims of some sort of criminal activity and began an investigation. Militia and criminal investigators were involved, but the girl was totally unable to show them the exact location of the encounter with the strange giant woman, nor to describe the appearance of the woman. So the adults decided that the girl had invented the whole story, but despite a wide search by militia personnel, the second girl was not found. About a year later, rumors began to circulate that several dozen kilometers away from the village, a feeble-minded, bald-headed girl had been found, which appeared unable to say anything about herself. None of the local villagers recognized her, so the child was sent to an itinerant or Russian boarding school, or orphanage. Meanwhile, somebody notified the parents of the missing girl about the strange girl that was found, but incredibly, they refused to visit the girl. Nothing is known about the fate of the girl after that.
This is kind of a sad, and frightening case. Yeah, that's me.
You're definitely not only bringing the high strangeness cases today, Albert, but you're kind of bringing the horror element.
The horror. The horror. Okay,
Bring the horror.
The horror. Okay, the next one here, Santa Cruz Beach in California, back in the States, summer 1983 afternoon. The main witness and two of his good friends, Katya and Amy, were on the beach by the boardwalk. It was a beautiful day, and they had been on the beach all afternoon. The sun was starting to go down, so they decided to pack up and go have a drink and a bite to eat at a nearby restaurant. They walked to the car about a half a mile from the beach. As they were putting their towels and beach items in the back of their car, they noticed two young people standing looking at them. A young male around 20 and a female the same age. Both looked zoned out, kind of strange, just standing there watching the trio of friends. The main witness walked up to them and asked them if they were okay and if they needed any help. Neither of them said a word. All of a sudden, Katya started screaming at him. "Get away from them," she said. The witness turned to look at Katya. She was very pale and shaking. He then turned back to the couple. He noticed their eyes and saw they were totally black. So this is like an early BEK encounter. The feeling that came over him was very, very scary and heavy. Quote, "A thick darkness seemed to cover him. He felt a little numb, and his legs would not move. The man with the black eyes then asked the witness if they could get a ride. His voice was shallow and unemotional. Before the witness could answer, Amy stepped in and said, 'Sorry, we're not leaving right now.' She grabbed the witness by the arm to help him walk away from them. At this point, the main witness became very nervous and wanted to get the hell away. He could barely move. The weird girl then reached out her hand to touch the witness, but he moved away from her. Her face looked so sad and her eyes very black. The whole time this was going on, Katya was in a paranoid state. Amy got the three of them to start walking away, and then the guy called out to them. They kept walking, never looking back. They went into a bar nearby, and they had several stiff drinks.
I would.
After the encounter, the main witness suffered nightmares about the event. And this is in '83, and this is one of an early, I guess you could call it a black-eyed kid or person encounter. Weird.
Yeah, the black-eyed children phenomenon, or the beings with the black eyes, always freaks me out. And one of the comments here is, what is their purpose, if any, on coming world events? What do you think about that, Albert?
I don't know, but there's been cases in which, after encountering a black-eyed child or a person, the witness has nightmares, and these nightmares include destruction of the earth, catastrophic images, or nuclear explosions.
That happens in many abduction cases too.
Also,
they're shown like holographic projections of the world blowing up.
Images, it's like warnings.
Yeah, like pay attention to your global warming.
Pay attention. Yeah.
Okay, so this one is located in Tuapse, Russia. The date is 1983 during the day. Mrs. Tatiana Zabalatonova, an engineer at a local electric substation located in the outskirts of town, was working at the plant when she looked out the window and noticed a large oval-shaped craft, steel in color, descending from the sky and disappearing behind some buildings. At the same time, her printing machine ceased to function. She then telephoned the central control room and suddenly noticed a strange figure from her window. The figure was a man dressed in a brown suit, single-breasted and military style, resembling a naval jacket with a high collar with adjusted pockets. He was very tall, with short cropped hair, and very handsome. The alien male entered the room and began to examine the electrical equipment, doing something near the switchboard. Tatiana was surprised because she knew no one was allowed in that location, which was well guarded. When she went into the corridor, the metallic door to the switchboard was opened and no one was inside. She returned to her office and again noticed the tall man passing under her window. She quickly ran out in an attempt to apprehend the trespasser, but he had vanished in plain sight. Tatiana was puzzled and, to her amazement, turned to irritation and then to fear. She returned to her office and saw two human-like, smoke-like silhouettes near her desk that suddenly disappeared. After that, she looked out the window again and saw the same oval UFO hovering. It was huge and then moved slowly away from the electrical substation, disappearing from sight in the distance. And this is from UFO Witnesses to the Unknown.
Yeah, by Russian researcher Alexei Prima. He's written several books, a lot of books on almost
You continue to bring the spooky, man.
spooky. All right, here we go.
I'm gonna go ahead and bring the image over here,
okay,
so that we can take a look. And I don't know if this is for the case that we just did or the one that's coming up, but this is
this is the one the one that's coming up right now.
Okay.
Cool image there. This is from location Barsi in the Bobbio region in Italy. June 5, 1983, early morning. A 56-year-old man was awakened by the furious barking of his dogs. He went to the balcony to look out and noticed an object hovering above a nearby field with a silvery dome which appeared to be rotating. As it rotated, it seemed to emit an orange beam of light, a white triangular light, and a purple light. After several minutes, the witness decided to go back inside his house. Around the same time, a 63-year-old neighbor was walking along a path in the same field when he noticed a strange oval-shaped object, I imagine the same object, about 2 meters in diameter, which is small, with a small open doorway, about 100 meters away from on the field. Suddenly, from inside the object emerged a small figure, similar to a human but resembling a midget. The figure moved around briefly around the object. The humanoid wore a hooded green coverall. As the witness approached the scene, the small humanoid re-entered the craft, which then took off and disappeared at high speed. At the site, small footprints were reportedly found. It's from an Italian UFO site. So the image doesn't really is similar, but not the same because it shows two humanoids. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, very much so. That's a type B encounter.
Correct, yeah.
Now, this is another kind of close to my heart location. I've spent a little bit of time in Mount Vernon, Missouri. This location, or rather case, took place in July of 1983 during the morning. Ron and Paula Watson were puzzled by bright silver flashes in a pasture across the road from their farmhouse. Ron got binoculars, which the couple shared back and forth. Each could see two small silver-suited beings running their hands over a black cow that was lying on its side and not moving. Paula thought the cow was alive, but paralyzed somehow. She could see in the binoculars that the small beings moved their hands in odd, jerky movements, and then suddenly the cow rose straight up from the grass and floated with the beings into a cone-shaped craft in the background. Ron said that the object was nearly invisible, quote, because the surface was like a mirror and reflected all the leaves, grass, and sky like perfect camouflage, close quote. And Albert, that occurs to me that even now, state-of-the-art invisibility is definitely a reality in the lab. It doesn't have a military use yet, but they are very close to being able to show you the sky if you're looking up at a jet plane, or the ground if you're looking down through a jet plane, all that kind of stuff.
I heard that the invisibility cloak might be already military.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
It is.
Okay.
Standing by a ramp and a dark opening into the object was a tall, green-skinned lizard man who glared with eyes slit by vertical pupils like a crocodile's or snake's. On the other side of the craft was a taller, hairy creature the couple referred to as a Bigfoot type that also had yellow vertical slits and round green eyes. As soon as the beings entered the object with the black cow, it disappeared. The owner of the field told Ron and Paula later that one of his black cows was missing. The couple tried to explain what they had seen, but the farmer did not want to listen, and the black cow never did show up. This is also from Linda Moulton Howe's Glimpses of Other Realities. And Albert, again, not the first time that I've heard this, type of encounter where there is a cow in a beam that goes into a craft.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
And also with the Bigfoot creature, along with the occupants or the UFO knots, that's not the first time I've heard that too.
Weird case. Also from Linda Moulton Howe.
Yep.
Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1. Yeah, the next case, we go to Crimea in the Ukraine, Blizhnyi Krasnoveletsky area in the Ukraine. Ooh, we lost you there. Hello? Hello, you back?
I am back.
You're back, okay.
Apparently, the CIA does not want us talking about this.
Nope. I'm sure that somebody doesn't want us. Well, this is back in July 1983 in Crimea, Ukraine. A local woman named Nadezhda Demyanova Izayeva heard strange footsteps outside her one-floor village house, number 38, at Shevchenko Street, like someone walking on her front yard. She also heard voices, but could not discern what language they were speaking in. She went outside and saw a strange cloud or of white mist or fog hovering above the ground in the middle of her backyard. Through the fog, she was able to see several silhouettes of humanoid entities, about 1.5 meters in height, like teenagers, quote. The figures appeared to be busy at some task in her garden and were speaking in a language totally unknown to her. Immediately, she felt a buzzing in her ears and an unpleasant feeling on her face and hands as if being pierced by thousands of needles. I guess numbing. Despite of being an atheist, the frightening woman crossed herself with the Orthodox cross and hid in the house. Securing the front door tightly, she stayed inside, trembling with fear, until the morning when she dared to step outside. To her, to her amazement and disappointment, she found a recently born calf lying dead in her in her kitchen garden with a large puncture mark on his side. There's another cow. Coincidentally, the one before that dealt with a cow.
Sounds like it was completely exsanguinated.
Yeah, the poor animal evidently died as a result of the strange entities performing some kind of test with it, or some kind of procedure. Her father, Demyan Izyev, told Nastya to forget what she had seen and what she had heard. But it was not the first time something like this had occurred. A circular area of burnt soil, about 3 to 4 meters in diameter, apparently the landing site, was discovered on the garden, and for many years nothing except weak grass grew there. All the other plants died inside the circular area.
That's exactly the same thing as what happened in the Delphos, Kansas case.
Yeah. And this is from researcher Andrew Savava from the Ukraine.
And the comment says, apparently direct animal mutilation linked with humanoid-type entities. The family in question has been involved in numerous bizarre episodes spanning decades. Can you tell us any more about that?
They've been involved in incidents like their grandparents and encounters with UFOs mainly.
Runs in the family.
Yeah, that happens a lot. The family thing. Could you excuse me 1 second? I got to do something here. 1 second.
Sure.
You go ahead with next
I'll go ahead and take the next one.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, so while Albert is gone, I'm going to well, the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So I am going to put up some of the merchandise that you can get at gillstore.com. And of course we have t-shirts here. That one doesn't have anything on the back. I have to fix that. You can also get your Into the Fringe mug. That's a very nice design. And I know we have some more Into the Fringe stuff after this. All kinds of merch. There you go. Different kinds of shirts. You can get, hoodies and all kinds of cool stuff. I like this one. As a matter of fact, I think I need to get one of those. And they're only $9.99. I mean, how cool is that? All right, let's get back to business here.
I'm back.
All right.
Did you get the next one, or are you going to...
No, I just was plugging my merch store.
I'm sorry about that.
I'm back. This one is near Krasnaya Poliana, Krasnodar region, North Caucasus Mountains, Russia. The date is July 2nd, 1983, during the afternoon. Biologist B. Borisov and his wife were exploring the area near the Akishiko meteorological station in an area located about 1,900 to 2,000 feet above sea level from the nearby Black Sea when they came upon a clearing in a forest. Borisov then sensed that someone was watching his back intently. He turned around and noticed two giant humanoid figures. He could make out heads, shoulders, and trunks, but no limbs. His wife became agitated and began yelling as the figures began approaching them. The beings took several jerky steps toward them and then stopped. The couple ran away and continued to watch the area for another half hour. The identical beings remained in the crevice of the mountain, occasionally turning around to look at the witnesses. And this one is from Paul Stonehill,
the
Paul Soviet
Stonehill,
UFO Files, and E.B. Galevsky.
Yeah. And this is, again, giant humanoid entities.
I know. You're curating some very high strangeness cases for us, Albert.
Yeah. Today was giants. Okay. Next one is from Portugal.
I'm glad you have this one.
Yeah, but you got the next one after that. This is a place called Pinhal in the province of Leiria in Portugal. Mid-September 1983 or possibly 84, not correct, not sure, but 11 a.m. João Paulo Ribeiro was hunting hares and was resting under a fig tree. He held his shotgun in his hands. After leaving the shade of the fig tree, he noticed a strange man standing by a tree across from him. The man was dressed in black with a white shirt and a black tie. On his head he wore a black hat like those of cowboys. The man looked to be about 50 years of age with a very white skin, like wax. The man was smiling and exuded happiness, according to the witness. He held his hands together on the navel area. The strangest thing was that the man was hovering more than a meter above the ground. Something impossible for a normal human being. Yeah, of course. Frightening, Ribeiro ran in the other direction and did not see the man depart. This is from a Portuguese group, POVNI. So this is an encounter of and strange, I don't know, entity, extraterrestrial, we don't know what he is. But definitely was doing something that strange. Okay, here's the next case for you.
Okay. So this location is near San Fabian de Alicio, Nuble, Chile, 1984, nighttime. The main witness, Monica, and her family had gone camping at the Los Yugos camping, known for its thermal baths and strange magnetic anomalies reported. One night, she visited the baths and heard a strange buzzing sound, and at the same time from the ground, strange luminous orbs emerged and surrounded the baths. She went to get the rest of her family so they could see and hear what she had experienced. Walking down toward their campsite, she saw a strange woman dressed in white with very long hair, angelical face, walking down from an area that was prohibited to enter by the park authorities. She didn't give it much thought, but her daughter also saw the woman and thought that she was, quote, very strange. It suddenly started to rain, and they all went to their vehicles to place them in a more secure spot. But at this point, the whole family felt a strange malaise and could not move their cars. Also, the doors of the vehicles would open and close continuously of their own accord. Creepy. Their arms felt numb. That same night, as Monica slept in her tent with her husband, she heard noises outside and felt that someone was watching her. She looked and saw what she described as a tall lizard man staring into the tent at them. She woke her husband up, and both saw the creature retreat from the tent, dragging a long tail behind it. The creature also had a large head. The next day, they found tracks that led to the prohibited area. They went immediately to notify the camp manager of what had occurred. However, the manager seemed evasive and avoided looking directly at their faces. He did say that those beings lived in the area and they would accept or reject campers using their own criteria, which is unknown. Monica also noticed that the camp manager would recycle discarded food and thought it was fed to the strange beings. The manager added that the beings were 4, which were human-like, and 3 that were reptilian in nature. The manager told the family that the area was one of 3 in Chile with the highest magnetic content, and that it was being regularly visited by scientists and other investigators. He added that behind the camping property in the middle of the river there was a rock that would glow an intense pink color at night. The camping manager also told the family a strange story. It gets stranger, apparently. Supposedly, during the construction of the camping grounds, there was a lot of digging in certain areas, where some strange vases were found at the site. The manager kept one of these vases, and the other one was kept by a worker. Later that night, the strange beings visited the manager, demanding their vases back. He told him that his wife would return with the vases once he died. Apparently, the beings agreed to this and did not return. Another family camping during this same time experienced similar events. And this is an E and X encounter. What does that mean?
E is an entity singing without a UFO present, and the X is just very high, strange content of the incident. Yeah, creepy lizard people, for sure.
And we have the link for the giveaway, which is going to be for Albert's book, Humanoids, The Others Among Us, Humanoid Encounters, The Others Among Us, 1981 to 1985. And all you have to do is go to this URL that's on your screen, and you can enter yourself to win, and you must be present in the chat when we spin that wheel. Be aware of that.
Alrighty, so that was weird.
Yeah.
Let's tone it down a little bit. Like we're going to back to Poland.
Yeah.
Linowick, Poland, February 19, 1984. The time 1400 hours, 2 p.m. A strange object was seen by 3 children, ranging from 5 to 8 years of age, while they were playing in the snow. They have noticed at about 60 meters away a strange being wearing a hat. They started running, but suddenly an egg-shaped object appeared over them and then descended, and a small being came out of it. The being seemed metallic, quote, and was about 120 centimeters in height, small one. It began moving in the children's direction, but then stopped and returned to the object. One of the young witnesses sketched the entity, and it shows two antenna-like protrusions and long arms. But they also sketched the UFO, which is what we're seeing right now. And this is from researcher Ariek Miaska from Poland. He's written several books about incidents in Poland.
Do you happen to know what the 75 stands for?
75?
Yeah.
No, I think the
maybe it's page 75?
I think it's the image number from the book that he wrote. And that was image number 75. I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. And this one is in Alberti, Buenos Aires, in Argentina. The date is March 4th of 1984. The time 7 a.m. Local teacher Ana Maria Galt de Prando was on her way to her school located nearby. Before leaving, she decided to go to her garden and picked up some roses, which she used to adorn the classroom. When she opened the gate, she was immediately confronted by the sight of a strange figure, which was apparently inside her home. She could see it through the window. The figure was described as luminous, was only about 2 meters away from Anna. She further described the figure as an oval-shaped being surrounded in a white glow. The figure itself was green in color, and she was able to see a head on it, which had 2 large yellowish protruding eyes. It was only about 1.4 meters in height. In an apparent shock, Anna became disoriented and fell backward. When she regained her senses, she went directly to the school where she began to meditate, not knowing what she had seen. The night before, her husband had heard a strange, deep, chirping, buzzing sound coming from outside, similar to thousands of cicadas. About the same time, her neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Sharia, also heard a loud buzzing directly above their roof. The next day, as the house was being cleaned, small, unknown, greenish stains were found, inconsistent to the texture of paint. Some of the stains were found at the entrance to the house, and some on top of her husband's vehicle. These proved hard to remove and had to be scraped off. Primary analysis of the stains showed that they were similar, but not exactly like some sort of plastic. It's another weird one, Albert.
This is from researcher Fabio Serpa and Can Victor del Prado. Okay, the next one's even weirder, but it's not scary, I don't think. It's from Vancouver, Washington, spring 1984 in the afternoon. The witness had been taking a walk through a wooded area when he entered a large clearing. He then came up on a small, domed, silvery disc-shaped object about 1 meter in diameter. Small craft. The witness bent down to look and was surprised to see inside the clear dome a very tiny man-like figure that appeared to be holding some sort of control rod. The witness picked up the disc and saw the little man cringe in fear, but the little man apparently recovered his composure and accelerated the disc, which then emitted a high-pitched hum and began to oscillate, causing the witness to release it. It then took off, vanishing at very high speed. This is from Flying Saucer Review, one of the issues, volume 32, number 3. Can you imagine picking up a little UFO and a little man inside? We go from giants to little tiny men.
Right? Yeah. It's interesting.
Full circle.
It's almost like the same, that you would get reports of the fae folk or fairies.
There you go. Yeah. But this one driving a UFO.
Well, I'm sure that you've been on Greg Bishop's show, Radio Mysterioso, right?
A couple times, yes.
Yeah.
Greg. Yeah.
So, his whole co-creation theory, I think there's a lot to that. And because there do seem to be consistencies, throughout the decades, in this particular case, we're talking about giants and very small entities. But his co-creation myth basically has to do with half of the encounter is generated by the observer. And I think in cases like this, it has a lot to say for it.
Might be. I mean, some of them are so, like he says, they don't make any sense. The encounter is just totally ridiculous. Yeah.
And we're solidly inside the second hour. So Mr. MH says, question for Albert. What pop culture franchises are you a fan of, Albert? For example, do you like Stargate, Doctor Who, Star Wars, or non-outer space franchises?
I like Doctor Who, definitely. I like Star Wars, and I like the Lord of the Rings, for sure. One of my favorites, Lord of the Rings.
And you're a Star Trek fan, of course.
Yeah, of course, Star Trek. Yeah, I like all that stuff. The 12 Monkeys movie, one of my favorite movies.
Oh, that's a great movie. One thing I found really interesting, Albert, I used to belong to a bulletin board, a BBS, and it was here in Lawrence. It was a local one. And so every Thursday night, people that were nearby would go to this bar called King Arthur's. And they were all science fiction fans. And when I tried to hand out flyers for my UFO lectures, every single one of them was like, you got to be kidding. Come on, man. So it's like very few science fiction fans are into UFOs, in my experience.
That's true. It used to be that way. I don't know anymore, but yeah, definitely. That's
and
true.
I mean, you have, movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still and Arrival as a new one or a newer one.
Well, a lot of those famous science fiction writers like Asimov and what's the other guy, the British guy, they were skeptics.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Especially Clarke, yeah.
Stanton Friedman had A, B, and C that he talked about. Asimov and Ben Bova and Arthur C. Clarke. And they all made proclamations about UFOs without having studied or done any homework, and were basically skeptical to the point of being in their own little, bubble.
Yeah, they were, because they were so into their fantasy and sci-fi that they figure UFOs must be part of the fantasy. Yeah, the show 12 Monkeys was good too.
Yeah, I need to look in to see if they have remastered that, because I would really dig that. I'm also looking for a copy of The Almighty Johnsons. Have you seen that?
It sounds familiar, but I don't know if I've seen it or not.
It's a show from New Zealand about a family of brothers, and when they turn 21, I think, or 18, I don't remember, they get their godhood. Like, one of them is Loki, one of them is Odin, one of them is et cetera, et cetera.
I vaguely remember that. Is that from a while back, last decade, I think? I don't know.
2011.
2011, okay. So
really great show.
Okay.
Basically the idea behind the show is that when the Norse gods stopped being worshipped, so they lost their power, they moved down to New Zealand to hide, basically, because there's another group of gods that want to subvert their ability to regain their power. And it's just a great show. It went 3 seasons. They wrapped it up. They had plenty of time. It wasn't canceled or anything. It's a very fun show. It's very funny. So if anybody gets a chance, check out The Almighty Johnsons. I think it's on Amazon Prime for free. So you can watch it that way. Yeah. I tried to buy the Blu-ray set of all three, but it's out of print, and it was like $199. And I'm like, I love that show, but I don't love it that much. Okay, so this case is Serra da Garandunha, Portugal.
Portugal, there you go. Yeah.
April 16th, 1984, time late afternoon. Watchman Americo Duarte dos Santos, who was also involved in other encounters, was taking one of his afternoon walks in the area when he sat down on a large rock to dry his boots and get some rest. While sitting there, suddenly he heard a loud buzzing sound similar to that of a swarm of bees. Well, we've heard that before. Looking around, he didn't see anything and thought that he had somehow sat on top of a beehive without him noticing it. He immediately stood up and looked down but did not see anything. At this point, the strange buzzing sound stopped. Intrigued, he decided to investigate further and saw on a nearby hillside a brilliant light that suddenly began approaching in his direction. At the same time, he heard inside his head, quote, "Americo, don't be afraid, we will not hurt you," close quote. When the light approached closer, Americo noticed that there was an object or a figure within the light. The light stopped about 10 meters away from Americo, and a figure emerged from the light. He described this figure as a tall, Christ-like figure with long hair, a short beard, and wearing a white tunic or cloak with a blue cord wrapped around his waist. The stranger, without moving his lips and obviously using telepathy, told the astonished Americo, "Don't be afraid. Listen to what I am about to say. We know that you suffer, but you are going to suffer even more. You have seen many things, and many more things will be shown to you so you will understand," close quote. Like a biblical sermon, the strange visitor continued his telepathic discourse with Americo, who remained staring, perplexed. Quote, "Tell your boss not to disturb this area since it is a sacred place," unquote, said the visitor, pointing to an area locally known as Quebeco de Peña. Before leaving the same way, he appeared to the visitor and said, "Earthlings will see many catastrophes in which both the innocent and the guilty will perish. There is nothing we can do to prevent this," close quote. Promising that he would return, the entity disappeared within the bright light, which then floated toward the previously mentioned Quebeco de Peña. As it disappeared, Americo could still hear the stranger's voice in his head. "Do not disturb anything here." After arriving at his home, Americo fell into a deep sleep, feeling exhausted. After dinner, around 21:45 hours, he went to his backyard and noticed what appeared to be a strange cloud forming on top of the local fire tower and then floating above the Quebeco de Peña area, completely covering it. From below the cloud, Americo could see lightning and hear the sound of thunder as the cloud turned into a deep red color. At the same time, Americo could hear in his head agonizing screams and thought his head was going to explode, and grabbed a hold of one of the stone columns at the back of his house. This lasted for about 2 minutes. After the cloud dissipated, Americo felt much better and went back inside his house.
This has definitely religious undertones.
Yep.
That area there, Quebeco de Peña, is known as a window area of very strange. A lot of incidents that's happened there. High strangeness.
A couple things that I've noticed in this case, Albert. We have that buzzing sound, which we encountered in an earlier case tonight. Sounds like a swarm of bees. We've heard that before. And also the "Don't be afraid, we will not hurt you." happens quite often in these encounters.
Very often. Yeah.
I'm interested in the part where the being says, "We know that you suffer, but you are going to suffer even more." It's pretty creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, we go to the next one here. This is we're going to Italy now, Sardinia, the island of Sardinia in Italy, Monte San Antonio, April 26, 1984, the time 10:45 a.m. During a school outing picnic, teacher Federico V was preparing lunch when he suddenly noticed a strange figure standing behind some nearby bushes. He described the figure as short, strongly built. Only the area from the waist up was visible. There you go. Because of the foliage. On his head, it wore a gray metallic helmet similar to those worn by Roman soldiers. On the helmet, there were a number of spike-like metallic protrusions, about 4 to 5 centimeters in length. Where the eyes would have been, there were 2 round holes. No nose or mouth was visible. The helmet was connected to a gray color coverall resembling an asbestos suit. Another witness, Aldo, now arrived and attempted to use a camera. At this point, the figure made a strange gesture with his hand, making a peculiar writing motion, with one hand on the palm of the other. The witness then felt lightheaded, and if he was rising from the ground, he felt lightheaded and like he was floating. Scared, he was not able to take any photos. When he regained his composure, the strange figure was gone. Moments later, the witnesses heard a whistling sound coming from the sky. Looking up, they saw a disc-shaped object disappearing at great speed towards the northeast. This is from the Italian group CISU, Center of Italian, I think, UFO Studies. I can't hear you, Gil.
Sorry, I guess
There
I
you
have
go.
to unmute my mic if I want people to hear me.
Yes.
Anti-Derivative Jill has put the 5 minutes left to enter the giveaway there in the link. So if you would like to win a copy of the book, go ahead and go to that URL and you will be entered to win if you're still in the chat by the time we end the show. We do have a couple of questions for you from the chat. Do you have any channels specifically that you like for humanoid, paranormal cases, of course, other than Into the Fringe?
A lot of them that I do listen to are like international. Like there's a lot of those in Argentina, Brazil, Spain. So if you're able to understand that language, you could go ahead. But I listen to Lon Stickler. He does have a lot of humanoid encounters also.
He's been a guest on Into the Fringe.
Yeah. Well, Phantoms and Monsters. That's the name of his channel.
Right.
And I'm working myself on a blog and a website, which I'm going to include cases soon, hopefully soon.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I really missed your online database. I think I mentioned before that I would just get lost in that thing, and before I knew it, it was like 7 o'clock at night.
The owner of that
afternoon.
database, his wife died, and he just completely abandoned the whole thing.
Yeah. Lon's wife died?
No, the owner of my database, UFO Info.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the website. He was from the UK, from England. His wife died, and he just quit the whole thing.
Which website is that?
It used to be the old UFO Info site.
Oh, okay.
That's where I had all my database.
Oh, okay.
My old database, yeah.
Back in the day, that's where I was reading it from.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's where they started.
All right, so now we have this interesting gentleman, And this location is near Budapest in Hungary. The date is summer of 1984 during the day. Several young people out for a joyride on a beautiful summer afternoon were turning a bend approaching a nearby field when they saw a gigantic humanoid at least 3 to 3.5 meters tall emerging from behind a mulberry tree and cross the field at very high speed. The bizarre figure appeared to move as if it had been wearing roller skates. It was dressed in a white astronaut-like outfit complete with helmet and dark shiny faceplate. It also appeared to have been wearing rather thick and large boots. The stunned witnesses decided to drive on, but stopped after a few meters and returned to the location in order to look for the bizarre figure. To their consternation, the strange figure had by now completely vanished. It had nowhere to go since the field had few trees and the road was now completely deserted. Visibility had been excellent on that day. Now, once again, Albert, we have these huge
humanoid
entities. 3 to 3.5 meters tall is like 20 feet.
I think it's like not 20, maybe 12, 13 feet.
12 to 13, okay.
I think.
I'm thinking yards, probably.
Okay.
But again, we have giant entities. This is a strange group of cases you've curated for us.
Weird.
All right. So let's go ahead and take a couple of comments here.
Okay.
Anyone have little people activity? Albert, have you ever had little people activity?
Well, what does it mean? I mean, little people cases?
Like the Fae folk, or have you yourself, have you seen any?
Myself, I seen a strange little person, not necessarily a little people, but I have seen.
Does Albert have incidents with little people / fairy folk?
Yeah, I do. In my database, there are many cases like that. Yeah.
And Canadian Spider-Man helps correct me. 3.3 meters is 10 feet roughly.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
And that does help. Canadian Spider-Man. Thank you. So, Darius Munchausen is here. I think it might be time for us to go ahead and bring in a mod with a wheel who can help us get people on the wheel and give away your book.
Alrighty.
And this is the 1981 to 1985 book, right?
Correct, yeah.
So I will double check, make sure that we have a mod, and in fact we do. Welcome, Canadian Spider-Man.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Me.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day here. Yeah.
You and I are going to do a show with Clobberin' Times about your Spider-Man comics.
Ooh, I hope so.
About your Silver Age Spider-Man comics.
That friggin' A. Awesome. Yeah, and
he's already committed to it. He just needs to hammer a date, like a Friday, I think. But we'll talk about that later. For now, we've got a book to give away.
Yeah, Albert, thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Glad to be here.
You are, of course, a fan favorite here on Into the Fringe. And there's a little Canadian Spider-Man. You're kind of being blown out by the light behind you, so you really can't see your shirt too well. But
that's why I came with the icon, the avatar first.
It's that'll be a fun stream.
Super sunny.
And Raw Thunderheart says, I was driving, but I heard a good chunk while driving home.
Oh, hey, Rod.
And Mr. MH says, it's always awesome. Love it when Albert is on. Don
Thank you.
McDouglas. One of Albert's sightings that looks like a bright light in the sky is in one of the compilation in the Suspect Sky channel, like a man in the clouds.
Yeah, I saw something like that, like a man in the clouds.
All right. Canadian Spider-Man, do you have a wheel?
I do. I can't take credit for it, though. Anti-derivative Jill made the wheel.
Jill
So,
loads up the wheel and you spin it. That's fine with me. Teamwork is great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just give me 1 second to pull it up, please.
Of course. Of course. So, Albert, have you had any, other than little people, have you had any encounters that we haven't discussed on the show so far?
I had some. I want to send you a little write-up that I did. It's a lot of stuff to cover right now, but I'll send you something. Then we'll talk about it on another day.
Cool.
Yeah.
And we're getting pretty close to the modern era here. So
Yeah.
we do one episode with Albert every month, and he has 16 books. So once we get to, this is to 85, so the next one will be 86 to 90. Then we're getting pretty close to the modern era. So Cam's Crash Courses says, Cardinalson, Albert is always a great guest, brings some interesting experiences.
Thank you.
All right.
Absolutely.
So we have the wheel.
Yes, sir.
Is it all loaded up and ready to go, Canadian Spider-Man?
It is, and I believe I've shared it with you.
And Jill says, yep, you finally got into the year I was born this week. Okay. Albert, I will allow you to command Canadian Spider-Man to spin the wheel.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, right between the eyes. Yes, sir.
1, go.
On the count of 3. 1, boom. Wow.
Canadian Spider-Man. All right.
Unbelievable.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Congratulations.
Well, I'll
Congratulations.
Oh, my goodness.
That
Thank
is
you.
super awesome.
All righty.
I'll never turn down a prize like that.
Now, a lot of people might say that mods get an inordinate amount of prizes that we give away. And the reason that happens is that they're here every week. So, yeah, Pat S. says he finally won something. And congratulations from Mr. MH. But, in fact, Canadian Spider-Man has won several things. And
I have.
Herc 130 has won a few.
Yep.
Don McDouglas has won a few.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, the more people, the better the chances that people who aren't mods will win. But as long as there are mods, mods are eligible to win. So I have your information, Canadian Spider-Man. I will get it to Albert. And
you'll get the book hopefully soon.
Canadian Spider-Man, do you have one of his books yet?
I do. Yeah, I do.
So he may have your address already, but I'll make sure to pass it on to him.
I can, please, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Please feel free to.
Anti-derivative Jill mentions that Mr. MH has won several as well.
Right.
And
please give the address to Albert Rosales.
Winners in Canada, winners in Australia. You know, it looks like the shipping issue has been resolved, but
yes.
So Canadian Spider-Man, I'm assuming that you're in Canada, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, right in British Columbia, actually, in the beautiful
No,
Okanagan.
no wonder still daylight over there. So you're in the west. Okay, I see.
Yeah, indeed.
And
Yeah,
Pat
and it's
S., Canadian
beautiful here.
Spider-Man, asks, will you buy me a Powerball ticket?
No kidding. Absolutely.
Because I guess you're a lucky guy. You win a
We
lot,
don't
so
have
that's why he's saying that.
Well, I'm lucky to be a friend of yours. It would
And
seem.
Albert's.
And Albert's,
All right.
absolutely. Yeah, if you have my
I-
address, I've got a spare bed, man, if you want to stop by anytime.
Yes, if you ever need to go to Canada, Albert,
That's
Uh,
one
you
place
got
I
a
wanted
friend
to
in
go.
Canadian
Yeah, I wanted to go to
Spider-Man.
Canada.
We have a lot of vineyards around where I live. A lot.
Oh,
And orchards.
I'm a fan of that sort of thing, actually.
Uh-huh. And in the Monashee Mountains, there are tales of all kinds of crazy stuff happening. All
bet.
kinds
Yeah.
in the Monashees.
Every
British
time
Columbia.
I go to the post office, I think about getting my passport so that we can, go around traveling,
I heard
seeing
that
sights.
Do it.
the area around Vancouver Island, there's a lot of weird stuff going on over there.
Well, that'd be cool.
I meant to ask you, Albert, is British Columbia well known for sightings of things like strange
Yeah,
phenomena?
besides Bigfoot, UFO, a lot of UFO activity. Maybe one day we'll discuss cases from there, from British Columbia.
I'd love to. Have you heard
Maddie's
of
daddy says, you're directly north of me, Canadian Spider-Man.
Oh, hey,
And
Maddie.
Mr. MH asks, Canadian Spider-Man, have you ever seen Ogopogo before? Doesn't
I
it
was-
live in Lake Okanagan?
It does. It's 100-mile long lake, and it does. And it is a cousin to Nessie. I don't know if Albert has ever heard of Ogopogo.
Yes, I have.
It is
yes.
a cousin of Nessie, and I drive by that lake almost every day. So
Have you seen it?
no, well, I'm
Maybe.
driving, right? So I can't
Yeah.
really look a lot at the lake intently.
That's a good
But
point.
I do stare at the lake often. Yes.
Cool.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'll step off now.
Okay.
All right, man.
Yeah.
We'll see you
Thank
later.
you, Albert. Thank you
Night.
so
You're
much
welcome.
for being here. Good night. Good night.
All right. All right, Gil. I gotta feed the dogs and stuff. You know how it is.
Yep.
I'm alone here, but
So, since we've gotten to the end of our show, I just wanted to remind folks at 9:15, I'm going to be doing an unboxing of Mega Proportions. And, of course, I was going to say next week, our guest is Cameron Pashaw, and he's going to tell us about the jinn and all the paranormal involved in Sufi mysticism. So that will be very interesting. So, for Albert Rosales, Canadian Spider-Man, all the people in the chat that have contributed, it's Cardinal Sin.